Ooh. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Let's make sure this is working. Type in the chat just to make sure everything's working. You can hear me, you can see me, you can all that good stuff. I can see Bruno writing in the chat, but that was just before I joined, I think, just before I put the face cam on. Also, make sure you make sure you have liked the video if you haven't already. Or the video slash stream as we're about to get into it. Everything is okay from Bruno in the chat. Nice. Let me know if you're here. And we'll get into things. We'll start with Bruno, and we're sort of just going to go through with everything. I'm going to speak a little bit about the game, the Newcastle game. We'll start off with that, and then maybe I'll get back to the chats straight away, starting from this Bruno chat at the top. But I will just go over the first few things that we wanted to speak about when it comes to the Newcastle game, because again, it's a loss, and it's a tough one to take because obviously a win would have been huge in terms of sort of securing that top five, that top five spot really, especially with Forest then going on to draw. Villa obviously won, so though that Villa's result didn't go in our favour. City obviously as well dropping points, so those are big factors. So how did the game look? We've got things set up here. This is basically how Newcastle were willing to press, and they went very aggressive from the get-go. They, as far as when I said in the preview that they were going to play a little bit more passive, they played passive in the sense of making a back five, but it wasn't passive. It was a defensive choice to actually allow them to be more aggressive. In fact, with their five at the back, and again, you can see here, this is just sort of how I've painted it out here. It's man to man everywhere. It allows you to go double with the pivot. It allows you to go in here, man for man. The wide forwards were able to apply pressure on the wide centre backs, and even when the ball was sort of transferring side to side, and the centre back could get a little bit of space to exploit, they were there quickly to sort of cut that off and make that ball circulate rather than carry. So that was a big sort of way that they managed to nullify us, especially in that first half. They were very intense and they were winning every second ball. And because of how far pushed up they were sort of playing with this. They were Neto and Murphy on the wide men. Again, these players were willing to make those jumps, and it basically made this battle very key. Which again, we know Jackson from those long balls. We know how the game changed in that sense because they were willing to do this. They wanted that ball to go into Jackson long, because once that ball went into Jackson long, he was at a disadvantage. Obviously, if he could bring it down and he could find his way 1v1, especially with one of these two pushed up, and he had the chance to swivel into one of the channels, either here or here, there, then it would be good. But again, because he didn't have that, and Botman knew, and Shah, when it was him, they knew how to deal with Jackson aerially. So they knew how to keep him facing his own goal, how to sort of use his physicality against him, and sort of force that ball backwards, which is what they did. And of course, we saw Jackson get sent off because he was trying to sort of do that to the best he could, try to sort of win those duels. Not his game, really. Again, he's brilliant when he can receive the ball and he can sort of make something stick and then turn. But physically, I think they just had the better of him. And I think he even came out and said in an interview that he was having to sort of really try and throw his arms about a bit to try and sort of be in this game against this back, especially against a back three of some very physical centre halves. So that was very much the game plan from Newcastle. Stop Chelsea circulating short, stop Chelsea sort of building through the middle of the pitch, and force that ball to go long into Jackson's feet or into the wide players, and look to win the duels off of that, whether it's Murphy or Madueke, Livramento on Neto, or one of the centre backs on Jackson / the two pocket players. They were very aggressive and they were very good at doing that. Let's quickly try this. We're going to try to bring up an image. Can you see that on stream? Let me know. George, I've just seen you put something in the chat as well. If I haven't replied, I probably haven't seen it, just because usually when I'm on Twitter, if I see it, I will reply. So if you want to repeat it here, I'm happy to sort of go over it here. Ninja Gecko talking. So have you guys seen? Can you guys see this on screen? I'm taking it you can, because this was the first half, and this is what we're talking about with the sort of man for man, the four in the middle there. Gordon, he's slightly dropped off, but he's ready to pounce. The second, if that ball sort of circulates over to Chalobah, Gordon can pounce. He can press Chalobah. Again, you've got the two middle of the park, Tonali, Guimaraes, and then Palmer is here, but they are ready to sort of press and be on him, because if I lose this image, that's worked as well. Bruno saying we see the picture, so perfect. Look how aggressive they are. Even here, you've got the four midfielders behind Isaac. You've got Gordon sort of ready out wide here with Chalobah. Same with Barnes out on Kukurea. And then you've got the two pivot players, very sort of highly marked by Guimaraes and Tonali. Isaac ready to go on Colwill, as we say, man for man. And then look where Burn and Shah are. Look where they're positioned. So high, so aggressive, ready to sort of jump out and win that ball. So that was something that really sort of stunted Chelsea in that first half. The way that Newcastle were aggressive, won their duels, and we was just beaten in that side of the game, essentially. But something we do need to talk about is the second half, because, of course, Jackson goes off injured. Not injured, sorry, red card. Jackson goes off. And we're not going to have Jackson for the last two games of the Premier League season. So that's a big thing as well. But from here, we see Madueke subbed off, Reece James come in, which then sees a little bit of a shift where we actually now see Enzo's technically playing on the right. Palmer's sort of through the middle. You've then got Caicedo, who's actually been moved permanently into the middle with Lavia. Kukurea is ready to burst forward. Everything sort of shifts over like this. And now what you've got is something very interesting, because of how Kukurea, we changed it with the inverting fullback, and the fullback is now going to sort of push on. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, look, Chelsea have made a really good change here. Like, they're not playing with the inverted fullback anymore, so the inverted fullback's rubbish. That's not how it works. But changing something within a game where especially when you're down to 10 men, you've got to change something. I thought this was really clever from Enzo Maresca, because what he actually did is move Enzo Fernandez out wide. And this movement basically saw, because he's playing on the right, Murphy was sort of he didn't know what to do with Fernandez. He was not on the left, sorry. Didn't know what to do with Fernandez. He was sort of like on him. But then Shah, because he'd been marking him in that pocket, he was also very privy to Fernandez. So what you've got now is when Enzo did make that move inside, it was confusing this side of the pitch, and it was almost dragging both of these players with Enzo, dragging them infield and sort of causing a little bit of a rift on this side of the pitch because of what Enzo Fernandez and his movement was doing for the team. So then what you allowed was Kukurea to, again, provide that width, make a run forwards into this space, where we were starting to find a little bit of joy, which was actually with this four, and again, Caicedo now and Lavia, they were playing double the intensity. They were having to do double the work, because they were in here for the build-up to make sure that you still had this 3-2, so that you could make these sort of advantages in the last line. But also, they then had to break in at least one of them, like Caicedo, quite a few times we saw him in this pocket, which was really nice to see, because it's something I've wanted to see. Breaking into this area, winning the ball back, making things happen. And the same with Lavia, he was ready to jump and sort of play aggressive in these spaces here. So that was really important with 10 men. And I actually thought we bossed that second half. And I'll show you an example. I think it's here. This is what I mean when it comes to, look, you've got Barnes in the middle here. He's ready to go on Lavia, because Lavia's sort of dropped off into that pivot spot. Enzo being able to drag both of those players away, and then it makes Kukurea that spare man, which is what I just showed you on the tactics board. So I thought that was a very clever tweak from Maresca to give Chelsea somewhat of an advantage on the ball, even though they had 10 men, and it did work, and we had chances, and that could have been a 1-1 game. I don't think it was a 2-0 game. I think we're unlucky not to score in that second half, and then they go down the other end and they score a deflected shot. So 2-0 loss, it is what it is. We're not going to mull over that result too much, but obviously the repercussions of the result is how important the last few games are now going to be. And of course, as well, the fact that now Nicholas Jackson, sorry, Wynn's sort of messing with the door so I could hear that. Now it's going to be no Nicholas Jackson for the last two games of the Premier League season. So that's sort of where we're at with that. Let me quickly sort of shift some of this back to how it was. And then we will talk about, I'll answer a few questions. If you've got any questions from this game tactically, I will refrain mostly. I might answer the odd one or two, because, like, again, people are going to be worried. I'll maybe speak about Jackson, for example, and how that can sort of be navigated with that striker position. But on Thursday, so tomorrow, I'll have a preview video like the last two that we've had, the Newcastle one, and the one before that was the Liverpool one. We'll have another video like those, which will speak about the sort of tactical preview, what we could see in that game, how Chelsea could set up, the sort of key battles in that game, and things that we've been touching on in those other previews. So I'll leave a lot of the United talk for that video tomorrow. But now we'll talk about a few of these transfers. You can see here, I've got a few of the players down here that have been spoken about. There's been a few things about Jackson, and I'm willing to just sort of answer some questions in the chat. So we've sort of had that little bit of the video done where I sort of touch on this. So now it's your time to let me know in the chat what you want to speak about. Sort of bring your questions to the table, and yeah, I'll try and go through some things, especially with these players that I've got on screen here. We do have a Gittens video coming out on the channel very soon as well. So again, I'll mention him because there was something about him and Garnacho today. But the video, there'll be a separate video for him as well. Right, hello, missed your videos and shorts. Thank you, so I'm going to have everything back now. Basically, been on holiday. Should be back to sort of daily video shorts, stream like this, little bits. Written work, which has never really stopped. Never really get a break from that, which is all good. So, yeah, thank you very much. Main problem with Chelsea right now is missing Jackson last two games. So, yeah, the two sort of answers to this, and I'll get round to it because, again, you're worried. We always struggle against United and Forest away. So Bruno, talking about what you've spoke about here, which is the Jackson thing, is without Jackson, you've probably got two choices, okay? It's either going to be George plays up front, which I really like the idea of, because I would quite like this idea, and especially with no Sancho either, against United, if we're talking about. Both of these guys out now. So we're either going to see this lineup, or we're going to see Neto up front, Madueke on the right, George on the left. Or I would like George to start in this game against United. But the other option, of course, would be Neto starts there, Madueke stays on the right, on the left, Palmer plays on the right, Enzo ends up playing in the 10, which means that essentially, because he's playing on the right, or it looks like this, and someone like Reece or Gusto overlaps on the right, or vice versa. Cucurella pushes up into the pocket, or Gusto pushes up into the pocket with Palmer here. Maresca can do a few different things with that right-hand side if he decides to put Palmer on that right-hand side against Manchester United. Like I say, I'll touch on it more tomorrow. I have to, tonight, after I've done this and I've done a few other bits of work, I have to go and watch a few United games. I've done a little bit of work on United, ready for the preview, but I wanted to do a little bit more tonight before we sort of get that video out for tomorrow to speak about, where are we? Speak about how we'll set up against Man U and who we can sort of target in that game to have the best chance of winning. Let me go through. Opinion on Sesko. Who do I want as a centre-back as after Huijsen's gone? So, yeah, I just saw that on Twitter coming out, basically, that Madrid are going to be in for him. Like, they're actually actively speaking to him again. So that's a shame. Centre-back wise, I've sort of said my piece with it. I do think we need one. It all depends who goes, who stays. For me, like, I still really would love Diamonde. I think as a profile, he's brilliant. Gurhi, I like the idea of for a different reason, but it's not the same reason. Like, I did a video about this before. Like, the reason to bring in Gurhi would be the leadership that he brings and the different sort of character that he brings to the back line. However, if you want to go for more of an aggressor, and Chalobah's going to be sold, with Fofana being sort of in and out of the team, it depends what you're going to do with Sarr next season, who signed from Strasbourg. Are you going to do something about that? Is he going to be given minutes? Joshua Chempong, another big one that I really want his minutes to be increased. But what are you going to do? So there's quite a lot of centre-backs that I don't mind the idea of and that I can make a case for, which is why I'm sort of keeping it low at the minute when it comes to centre-back talk, because I'm aware that we need one. I agree that we need one. Do I have an absolute out-and-out number one favourite right now? The answer is no, purely because I want to see what happens next. But I've got a video coming out about Huijsen shortly on the channel as well, if you want to watch that. Like I say, Gittens is another one that we're going to cover in a separate video. But there's a lot to speak about in terms of the centre-backs, of course, and it all depends. Even players like Disasi, like, we know he needs to be sold, but will the club sort of look to get that done first, or they look to get the movements out first, especially if it's not Huijsen. Like it sounded like they wanted to move fast on Huijsen, but if he doesn't get signed, will they slow that centre back search down a little bit to try and get rid of a few people first? Like, it's going to be very interesting this window. I think it's going to be a really, really weird one. Really weird window. We've got 35 people in now, by the way. I've tried something today where we only broadcast to YouTube. What I have been doing in the past is broadcasting to YouTube and Twitter, but I don't know if it was taking away from what we have on this, like what we're building on the channel, because I have a bit more of a following on Twitter, so I want to sort of build towards the YouTube specifically. So yeah, if you are in this chat now, 35 people watching on here, 9 likes. Let's see if we can get that at least to 25 with 35 people in the chat. Let's at least get that to 25. Let me just make sure that this is all working. Nice one. Right. More questions. You asked a question on YouTube. Yeah, I'll answer it. I think you put it in here. Casado inverts too early. I think sometimes it depends what the game is. I think I'm assuming you mean from the game just gone against Newcastle, where I don't know if that was the case purely because Chalobah and Cucurella were stretching anyway, sort of in these positions because of this one-to-one man here. I think something that we didn't do enough of is because Casado was inverting very early and taking sort of this Tonali, like this double marking with Lavia inside, with Bruno, Tonali, Lavia, Casado. What we didn't see enough of was this player looking to sort of get on the outside and sort of win that duel himself by through carries. Something Fofana does well, something Chalobah has shown he can do. So that's something we didn't really use enough. Probably doesn't help that we went down so early because the confidence was shot, and it was one of those games where safety was probably going to come first for a lot of the game. It was probably going to be one of those games where you prioritise a bit of safety. But when you can see 2 minutes in, a lot of that stuff goes out the window. You said we can see the picture. Opinion on Hato, that's another one very similar, like we were saying before. I think he suits this role best, where he sort of starts at left back and becomes that Cucurella player. Unbelievable potential. There's a few things about him, which again, I'll probably end up having to do a video about him, a broader one, because there's a few things in his passing technique, which I do like. There's a few things in his passing technique that I don't like. Overall, I think very, very good player, but this is the role that I'd want to use him in, and he would begin as an understudy to Cucurella, as good as he is. So, and again, you could offer him minutes because you'd want to get him between 1,000 and 1,500 minutes in his first season minimum. So even if he's sort of playing the Cucurella minutes in some competitions as a left back, becoming a left centre back, he could also play as a left centre back in a 4, but still becoming that left centre back on the ball. So it would depend to get him his minutes. But yeah, I do like Hato. I do like him. George saying it was along the lines of we tend to need to concede early or get a break at half time to really get kicking. Wondering if you think this is often tactical or mentality or game state. I think it's all of. I think they've all been an issue at one point or another. So, for example, I think against Newcastle going down early, I think if anything that affected the game for the next 20, 30 minutes because, like I said, it was a little bit. They sort of looked a little bit unsure what to do. We was getting pinned in quite early. We was under pressure, so that can sort of come down to game state. Again, if you're 2-1 down, you can or against Fulham 1-0 down later on into the game, and again because of the game state, you start to push, and the mentality shifts because you need a goal, and then once that one goal comes from Tyreek George against Fulham, the energy bursts and you get a little bit more. So I think it's a few of them. I just think it depends on the game, and I think that's something that when you have a young team, I think especially mentality can shift based on any decision, and that's something that we need to grow with quickly because if we want to win things and we want to compete, but it is something that you only do via playing games, and that's only going to happen as time goes on. How are you doing, Abdullah? I feel like a lot of players we should look at should be combinations of players we already have, like Rodgers. Rodgers is such an interesting one. I'm gonna let's sort of go into this because I wanted to sort of make this like a 7-8 minute segment about Rodgers because I was thinking I can sort of then cut it down into a separate video. Let me get rid of all the Newcastle players on here. because Rodgers is so interesting, because I think a lot of people sort of, when you speak about a hybrid winger, and we're talking about Felix and Kunku, that have tried that same role playing off the left. Now, again, I'm just going to put Rodgers in on the left, and I'm going to put Madueke on the right for this example. And I'm going to put Jackson up front. But of course, this is just saying if Rodgers joined the team and nobody else changed, okay? So everything else is the same. Let's say this is the example of a team that you put out, and again, you can have so many iterations of this. You can have Reece James pulling into right back into centre midfield. There's so many ways you can do it. But if Rodgers was signed as a left winger, how would it work? Now, why is he different? Firstly, from the other sort of hybrid players that we're talking about, like an Nkunku, and the main thing is athleticism and the sort of ability to burst, that speed. And Nkunku's not slow, but Rodgers, he's built for those sort of maverick moments. He's a maverick. And again, Felix is that, but Rodgers is built a little bit sort of more securely for the Premier League, and he can run with the ball, bounce players off of him, and he can go on the outside due to that ability. He has the ability in close control to go 1v1 on the outside in this wing position, sort of beat his man 1v1 like Maresca wants. But he's also got the ability to drive inside and just make things happen at pace in and around the top of the box. And because he's that sort of maverick that makes things happen in chaotic moments from wide areas, if he's starting wide, I do prefer Rodgers centrally. And again, people will think, like, on paper, when people are setting up their sort of teams and they want it to how it's going to look on paper, they'd say, "Oh, we want this. We want Rodgers and Palmer in the half spaces, which means we need an overlapping left back, which means now this player is going to be the central centre back, and Reece James, wherever he is going to be the right centre back." And yeah, that can be a way. That can be a way. But just because it lines up and that's how people sort of visualize it on paper, what someone like Rodgers gives you is the ability to sort of make this connection really, really special, because it's not just about every single time it's an automatic Cucurella goes there, Rodgers goes there, Chelsea are in their shape. What it allows you to do with someone like Rodgers, who can do both because he's athletic enough to go on the outside and play as a winger, and he's quick, but he's also got the ability to play in those tight pockets of space and just make something happen. He gives you both of those things. And this would mean that Cucurella can go on the outside to provide an overlap. He can go from left back and he can invert into the middle of the pitch, which again, I've spoke about why I like when one of the fullbacks, especially someone like Cucurella, is in the middle of the pitch, because I think that when that ball is lost, say the ball's lost in around here, I love that you have someone like Cucurella close enough to the ball where all of those players can swarm it straight away. Because then imagine you win it there, all of a sudden, Rodgers is in. And those sort of things become really special. And I think Cucurella and Rodgers could work really, really, really well together to create those moments of chaos between them, which I think would favour Maresca. I think he'd really enjoy that with Rodgers. And I think we saw glimpses of how it could have worked with Felix, but for whatever reason, sort of things went downhill with Felix and Maresca. I don't think Felix has got the same sort of physicality to sort of deal with it as well as someone like Rodgers does, and we've seen it work for Rodgers. So he is one of those players that I do think could work really, really, really well in this team. Now, is that to say that someone like Gittens doesn't more or less fit the bill more in terms of what we want? If we're just trying to plug and play, go. Gittens fits quicker, and not quicker as in how long he takes to fit into the team because he's young and he's raw, but more so that he is a plug and play, he's a touchline winger, and he's exactly what, like, people, the stereotype of what people think that we need. And it's true, he's much more like someone like Madueke, who I keep banging on about how important someone like Madueke is in this system. Where were we? What was I going to say? But yeah, these sort of direct wingers who can attack the box, get the ball into the box, especially because this will be hopefully somebody else as well, a different type of striker that we'll have in the side. Someone like Gittens makes a lot of sense, but it's risky. And I do think having Rodgers plus a touchline winger on that left side as an option would make a lot of sense. If you had Rodgers, and now you know Madueke and Neto can both play that side. So if your wingers were to be Esteval, Madueke, Rodgers, Neto, and Sancho goes back as well, right? Sancho leaves, and your four technically wingers are those four, and then Tyreek George. What you've then got is a mixture of profiles. Rodgers, who can play as a 10 if Palmer sort of goes out injured. So you've got that opportunity as well, because a lot, and the same with Esteval, you've got players who can sort of go across positions. You've got direct wingers with Madueke, even with Neto, who isn't as direct. He's not like a Gittens, but he can play on that left side if you want him to go on the outside and sort of attack and put balls into the box on his left foot. But you're adding, more than anything, you're adding a central carrier. And I think that is something that a lot of people are missing with the Rodgers addition. The ability to carry the ball, not on the outside of a block, like a lot of these players do, but into a block. Because once that ball is inside the block, it becomes chaos. And that's where you create controlled chaos moments. Because he's driving from outside to inside. And even if he loses that ball, it's then a scramble to get rid of it. And then you've got these players pushing up really high. And if that ball even breaks slightly, there's chances for these players to latch onto it. And Rodgers is so special that he can make something happen himself. He might not even lose it, but that's just if he loses it. So that's what's so important and special about what Rodgers could bring to the side. Now, of course, there'll be issues in certain games, and in certain games you won't want him on the left because you'll want to attack the fullback more directly on the outside, which is why I say about Neto. And that's also why Madueke could work well on the left at times next season. So it's an interesting one. How do you guys feel about Rodgers? How do you guys feel about Rodgers? Let me know. Because like I say, Gittens, a little bit more like Madueke, a little bit sort of closer fit, but I'm going to have a video out on him very shortly on the channel. He is an interesting one because I really like him. I think he's got such high ceiling potential. But, and there is a but, will fans and will the fact that we need players to help win now, will it affect how he's sort of judged, which will then cause issues? That's my biggest worry with Gittens, because I do think he's a good year away. I don't think he'd explode next year. I think you're right to buy him this summer because there's like a lot of other teams are in for him. Like there's competition for him because of the sort of profile that you've got there, and you can mold him really nicely into a goal-scoring winger who's very direct and arrives really nicely at the back post as well. He's got those traits if you want to sort of use that. But yeah, he's an interesting one because I don't think he blows up next season. I think if he joins, he does okay in his first year. He has moments, but he also has a few moments where fans will sort of go, "Oh, I don't know about him," and that's what worries me. Jay saying, "Big up, brother. We're mediocre at best. We'll go nowhere with this ownership." The ownership is still very much an issue in terms of where we're targeting the right players. I mean, the striker one's really worrying me. And we'll speak about Sesko before this ends, but the striker situation is worrying because, as everybody knows, I think that's the position where I wouldn't even hesitate. I would go and buy Osimhen tomorrow. I think that fixes so many problems that we have, but that's a big issue. But mediocre at best, I don't agree with that. I do think we've shown really good signs. I think at our best, we've shown how good we actually can be. I think it's now just becoming consistent, gaining the experience, and acquiring the right players now to improve and take us up another level. So it's tough, but let's see what happens in the last two games for sure. Thoughts on who we would drop of the midfield when we get Andre? Yeah, I wouldn't move Palmer to right wing personally, just because, again, I prefer him in the middle, in the pockets. I think that works better for him in this system. And I don't want him being pinned out wide where he sort of take on his man. And I also don't think an overlapping fullback helps overly. In certain games it can, but I wouldn't be doing it. In terms of who you drop, again, I think that's just the brilliance of how good this squad can be. I think Lavia with the injury issues, at times it could be him out and Andre in. I think you've got Caicedo and Reece who can both come into midfield from right backs. That gives you that sort of option. Andre can do both the holding role, and I think he could also play quite well in this left number 8 role. So I think there's multiple ways you can get Andre Santos into this team, and it doesn't have to be one specific way where we say, right, Enzo's not a starter anymore, because I don't think it has to be that cutthroat. I think it can just be as simple as lost where I was going because I was thinking I need to get Kukurea back in here, but yeah, I don't think it's as cutthroat as that. Is what I was trying to say. I think it can change week on week. Daniel Knight says hi. What's up, Daniel? That was just you replying. Depends on what competition we're in. What was that to do with Ninja Gecko? I feel like Colwell and Noni have had the biggest season-to-season improvement so far. Been quite pleased. Colwell's been sort of people have been a bit off on Colwell, haven't they? Like, and again, he has had some poor performances this season, but I thought he was really good against Newcastle, and I do think that especially when Fofana was in the team earlier in the season, I thought they were building a really good partnership. So I'm not worried about Colwell at all. I think he's had some very poor moments. I think his down moments have been really bad. But yeah, Football Universe. I'm scrolling down the chat now, but hopefully that helps what we spoke about with Rodgers. Why are we not looking at any experience in the first team? I'm going to touch on that, Daniel, because I'm going to touch on that. Hang on, let me get to that in a minute. Did we win our remaining games? You're confident? I'm not confident. It's strange because the way I see it is I think as long as we beat Man U, we go into that game with obviously the cards in our hand. But Villa also might not win both their games. So a draw against Forest could end up being enough. That shouldn't be the mindset going in. But let's say Villa draw this weekend to Spurs and we beat Man U. That would pretty much mean that going into the last week, we can draw against Forest and come 5th. So things can change. I'm not even thinking about the Forest game yet because I just beat United on Friday, and then we'll see what we can do. If we're in the Champions League next season, I will worry of the summer window. We need proven players and experience. Yeah, but again, that's the thing. I do think our best team, like even the team I've got on here now with like 1 or 2 additions, I do think it can compete in the Champions League at its best. It's just like when a few injuries come into play, then how do you replace them? Do you start to struggle? But I do think when our team is fully at its best, in the same way Villa did this season, there's no reason we can't compete in the Champions League. That doesn't mean win it, by the way, with the team we've got, because it's still a few years, like it's still off that, and we know that because, like you say, the experience isn't there, the winners, and even a few profiles, which we need to see what we do this summer. So you think Rodgers can be a touchline winger? No, I don't think he can be a touchline winger. That's the thing. I think people sort of miss the fact that they think it's just a touchline wing role. They have to play on the touchline in the first phase of play to stretch the play and to pin these fullbacks deep. But when that ball progresses, they don't have to just be a touchline winger. If the connections with their wide triangle connections are correct. And that's where sort of second season Maresca is going to be really interesting because that's where I'll be judging him more. What new things can he implement to help players and to get the best out of them? And we saw, like I've touched on it a few times, especially on this right side of the pitch. We've seen it with Enzo and Gusto. We've seen a few new sort of patterns of play emerging with those two on the right, which I've really enjoyed. I think Kukurea, we've seen throughout the season slowly sort of aiding these players on this left-hand side and their positional sort of threat where they can be, whether it's in the half space, wide or deeper in any of those 3 spots. So again, the fullbacks can be a big part of how Chelsea progress next season and sort of add to the system. Do you think Barco could work at Chelsea 2026 more likely? Yes, but it's the physicality. It's like he's got to be very much like Kukurea. He's so good on the ball, so good. He can invert, he can overlap, so technically efficient, and like the manager would love him on the ball. But then off the ball, he has to be a bit like Kukurea. He has to, because he's a little bit like he's smaller and he's not as physically sort of in your, like, he's not going to bustle players off the ball. Instead, it's got to be through intensity, because Kukurea survives through his intensity and through the fact that he is just a nightmare to play against. So Barco, that would be the next thing for him to make it to this level. On the ball, I have no worries about Barco. I'm a massive fan of him. Said it when Brighton signed him. Tweeted about it when Strasbourg managed to get him. So yeah. So if it was down to you, you would send Sancho back. No, because it depends. It's weird, because if we went for Gittens, I'd actually kind of want to keep Sancho, because I think he offers something different, like a creator from that wide. But if you sign Rodgers, then I wouldn't keep Sancho. So again, it depends what you do. It depends what you do. I just think it's more about making sure that you get the right pairings of wingers rather than which ones they are. I think profile is as important as the player, unless it's someone like Rodrigo, for example, in the summer, or like a big name that everybody wants. Other than that, I would be more focused on the profiling and making sure you have a lot of different wing profiles that can offer you different things in different games that help Maresca. Yeah, like I said, I'll have a video out on him, Daniel, which hopefully will help you get a little bit more excited for the idea of him. But as I say, I don't think he smashes it next season. More versatility and depth for our winger profiles. Yeah, exactly. On the sporting director sat and gone at Chelsea. I mean, yeah, ideally. Duoscopes has missed these streams. Thank you very much, Dua. Yeah, I've been away. I mean, even the streams, I haven't been doing much lately, but I've just had so much on. I'm going to try and stream once a week again with Tactics Talk. But in order to get these streams out, we need to make sure we're smashing the like button and making sure that we get good support on the videos to make them worthwhile, because otherwise it's better off me making the videos and spending my time on those when they perform better. So I enjoy doing the streams. I'm happy to sort of answer questions and go through things, and it's always fun. But in order to make it worthwhile, we need the support on the streams as well, of course. Problem I have with this ownership is that they've sacrificed short term for the long term facade. Thank you, Jay. I appreciate that for the sub. But yeah, I said this at the time. I think I said this last season actually. They sacrificed it by trying to do it quickly. They sort of got rid of everything in one go, and they tried to like almost speed run it, which we'll see very soon. If we was to compete next season, I'd actually say that it's been worthwhile, which might be an unpopular opinion, because if we was to compete for a title next season, I would say that that's quite a quick turnaround for what is a new ownership rebuild where you get rid of everything and you start very, very fresh. But if not, then yeah, of course, you start to look back, and the longer it takes, the more you look at the seasons that could have been playing for minor titles at the very least, like getting to the cup finals and sort of making things for the fans. Instead, you've replaced that with 12th place finishes. So I get it from both ends. Pardon me. Would you look at Rafael Leao? He's one of those players that if he joined, because I think he is a game-breaking profile, if he joined, I'd be really behind it, because I just think he is so good on his day. And I think he could score, he could fire you to a title with the attacking quality that he has. But my biggest concerns would be off ball and the rest of the team. Like, I'm not sure it's the best move to make. My head tells me don't do it. It's one of those ones where my heart tells me it's quite exciting, though. So it's like, I'm a little bit torn. Not looking for experience because of this under 25 model. Yeah, for sure. That is definitely the case. Yeah, it is all about the resale value, like you say. It is definitely to do with that. I can't disagree. Wish you didn't have a job so you could actually watch this live, but looking forward to checking out the video later. Thank you very much. CMDR. Don't know. Tell me how I should say that name, by the way, if you're still in here, because like I'm not sure whether is it just a lot of letters, or is it meant to sort of come together as a name? Big up Connor and everyone. Let's go. Big up CFC Dante. Thank you for the kind message. So how is Enzo Maresca's job not under pressure? If we miss out on Champions League, it will be failed 3 years. Someone needs to take the blame. Yeah, I mean, I've got so many videos. I feel like I just keep going over the same thing. Like, I'm very much I work on this stuff day in, day out, and I am very, very happy with what I've seen from Enzo Maresca. That's not to say he's faultless. That's not to say he's not made wrong decisions. Even just against Newcastle in the first half, I would have started with Palmer on the left and Enzo on the right. For the reason that I said in my tactical preview, he opted for the other way around, and I do actually think that it affected our progression, especially on that left hand side of the pitch in that first half. So of course, there's going to be things that people don't agree with, including me. But what I've seen from him, I'm happy with, and I think definitely tactically, I have literally no questions about Enzo Maresca. I think tactically he's so astute. The question that will begin to come in is next season. Like I said earlier, next season I'll be judging on a different framework. This season I'm judging on the basics, how we sort of look as a unit, how we sort of control games, how we've sort of trying to take away everything that was done under Potts last season and try and create something more sustainable. Next season, I'll start to judge things a little bit more on how can you get some better, more fluid rotations into the team. Look at Luis Enrique as one that I always keep saying. In his first season at PSG, a lot of people were sort of very harsh on him, rightfully so, that there were some things that went wrong. But again, a lot of people that were watching PSG at the time were saying, yeah, the system, it kind of like it's shaping, but it's just not quite there yet, and it's going to take time. This season, even at the start of this season, wasn't great, but then it become a lot more fluid recently, and the coaching details that he started to implement in this last sort of 4 or 5 months have been superb. So, yeah, that's where I'm at with this. With that, so I'll keep coming back with everything I can say on Maresca, but I'm very happy with him. And next season it could change. Like I say, I will not. If next season is very similar to this season, and I don't see an improvement in certain areas, and I don't see an improvement then I will call it out. If I think that the wingers are being pinned too far out and they're not getting enough support from the number 8s, for example, and the automation sort of between these sort of like 4 players and these 4 players, if I'm not seeing a little bit more sort of fluidity, again, I'll have questions. But right now, I'm happy, very happy. I say very happy is maybe a bit strong, but because obviously I want Champions League, but you get what I mean. Overall, I don't get why all our centre-back target seems to be left centre-backs. What we need most is an aggressive right centre-back to cover Fofana. Yeah, Loic Bad is another one that's been sort of linked. Diomande would be that. It all depends what you do with Chalobah as well, because if you're going to keep Chalobah, then I think he's been really good in these last few games. Gurhi again can do a bit of everything. So it's the centre back's a really strange one. Opinion on Ekitike. So I was going to say this. I was going to do this for a short, and I probably still will do it for a short. But I think Ekitike is really, really again high, a bit like Sesko. The ceiling is so high. But if I was to rank 1 to 5, Osimhen, Delap, Sesko, Ekitike, and who's the other one I didn't say? Delap, I think. Delap, Gyökeres, Osimhen, Ekitike, Sesko. My rankings would be Sesko 5th for how assured the signing is. But he's one of the highest ceilings. So it's like, with someone like Sesko and even Ekitike, I'd have them 5th and 4th. But they have probably the first and second highest ceiling that you could hit in this team if everything went right. But that's if everything went right. They're young. They're not going to do it straight away. Whereas the reason I'd have Osimhen first is I think he literally comes into the team and I think he bangs straight away. Second for me would be Delap, which again, a lot of people might think, what, over Gyökeres? Mainly because I have question marks about Gyökeres in terms of what he can offer, in terms of what I want from the striker to offer more from crosses. So Gyökeres would be 3rd for that reason, and Delap would be 1st purely because of Delap's aggression and character. That's literally the reason he's 2nd, because that's what I want from a Chelsea striker that we're going to add this summer. So Osimhen and Delap would be my number 1 and number 2 for that reason. But yeah, Ekitike, ridiculously high ceiling. Like a lot of comparisons to Isaac, and rightfully so. But not assured, not nailed on that he bagged straight away. Maresca deserves another season. Absolutely agree. They'll do nothing this summer. List of strikers revealed is shocking. No proven experience. Look, if they came out and just signed Osimhen, where would you stand, Jay? If they literally came out now, straight, let's say they come out, they go, they sign Rodgers, Osimhen. Actually, no, let's not say Rodgers and Osimhen, because I feel like if you're going to go for Osimhen, you go, let's say Gittens, Osimhen, and Gurhey, just for example. How happy would you be with that? Yeah, I disagree with that. I think Palmer's best in the 10, where he can receive between the lines and actually be more of a playmaker, and then attack the box a little bit later with Jackson. I think, again, I still think he's been really good this season. I think he had a poor run of form, but I don't think that was systematic. Yeah, and do I rate his manager? Yes, I do. Supposed to be Commander Shepherd. Oh, okay, Commander Shepherd. Nice. Okay, at least I know what to call you now. I don't think he has misprofiled a lot of players. If you're talking about Maresca, we'll not blame Maresca if we miss out on UCL. We blame the board and sport directors. Yeah, I agree. 100%, Daniel. I agree with that. I think if you miss out on UCL, then to blame the board and sporting directors is fair, very fair. Yeah. Last season, Nissa Kinsella reported the next manager will be expect to qualify for Champions League, win trophies. Yeah, I can't speak to why with the PR. I see a big improvement from this season to last season, no matter where we finish now. Whatever happens in these last two games, I've seen the improvement with my own eyes, with how I watch and what I do for work. I see the improvement. Now, again, do the expectations rise massively next season because it would be a second season? Yes, they do, big time. But I do see the improvement, and I wouldn't sack Maresca even if we don't qualify for Champions League for that reason. But the PR, I can't answer to that because the PR is very obvious. The PR is very obvious in the club, isn't it? Does Sancho for 25 sound reasonable? I think it is. I think it's not bad. Like I said, if you don't get Rodgers, if you get Gittens, if you were to go and get Gittens, I think you spend 25 and keep Sancho as well. Honestly, I don't think it's a bad price. Yeah, I don't know if you said that just before I mentioned Bade, Loic Bade, Hams, but yeah, I agree. He's very similar to Fafana in that type. What do you think is best side for Quenda, left or right? I honestly don't know. I think he's got like positives from both. I think maybe long term the right, but I don't see any reason why it couldn't be Esteval on the right and Quenda on the left in the absolute like long term, if that's what works best for the team, because he is so good on both sides. Yeah, that's not a bad shout from Sergey. Yeah, I don't agree with that. Where are we going to go? Need a proper proven striker. I don't want Sesko. Yeah, and I think that's fair. Like I say, next season, I think if that's what you need quickly, I think I agree. How do you feel if right centre back Sarr, Fafana, Trev, Cole, Benoit, left centre back, Reece, Josh Casado, right back, and Ishe, Kuka, Hato, left back? I think that's brilliant depth. I think that is brilliant depth. I wouldn't say Casado is a right back, but obviously I get that you're saying I'd put Gusto where you put Casado because I wouldn't get rid of Gusto. I've said it a lot. I really like Gusto and his versatility. I think his on-ball actions haven't been great this year, but I think he's done a lot. He's still done a lot that I like, which is, again, I completely understand that other people won't want to realize that, or not even want to realize that, but it's not what you're looking for. But when I go back and watch games the second or third time round, there's parts of Gusto's game that I recognise that a lot of other players don't do, in terms of what he offers you with his mobility, what he offers you with his intensity, and sort of. I think he's one of those players that, again, will like a lot of players will like. A lot of fans will come to love Gusto again, I think. So yeah. For sure, other than the frustrating post-Christmas period, really enjoyed the season. I like that from you, or Dax Jack. I like that. What do you mean Palmer and Enzo playing the same position? Enzo left half space, Palmer right half space. Delap, Sesko, and Ekatike is the best of 3 strikers revealed. Yeah, and like I say, how will we counter Arsenal when they get Gyökeres? Yeah, I mean, I want Osimhen. I've not made that. I've not made that sort of a secret. What do you think about Noni as a player? Really like him, especially in this sort of system. Really, really like him. If he's sold next season, I'll be really, really annoyed. I think he's just perfect for Maresca. I think he fits in every way, and there's no way I'll be letting him go. When Quenda joins, because that's like the most similar profile to Noni in terms of how he can be direct, beat players, and sort of use his body to sort of initiate contact when he drives at the box. Then maybe there's a decision to make. But next season, if they sell him just because Esteval's arriving, I really won't like that at all. Rich Money Makers, big up legend. We need this SD sat because they're giving owners correct profiles. Hit the like, subscribe. It's free, only takes seconds. Let's go. Thank you, my friend. You told lots of people about me. I really, really appreciate that, my guy. Yeah, really, really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Was planned to have Santos as backup to Lavia Casado. Yeah, they've sort of. I think they've sort of made it out that Casado and Asugo will be like in competition with each other. Lavia and Santos, and then Enzo and Enzo and Paez is what they sort of briefed at that time. But I think Paez will definitely be on loan. Firmly believe that 1 owners, 2 sporting directors, and more. Yep, 100%, Jay. Don't want Gittens anywhere near Chelsea. Hopefully, my video is going to help sort of put a few more people into the Gittens pro camp. That being said, that still doesn't mean when I say the pro camp, I'm going to make a video which is going to speak very highly of Gittens as a player. But that doesn't mean he's the right answer next season. That doesn't mean that I'm saying he comes in next season and he fixes everything, because that would be very, very naive. But hopefully my video can at least make it that if we do sign him, you understand why he's sort of rated how he is how the video I'm hoping will help. According to sources, yes, they love Sanchez and don't shoot the messenger. They might sell Petrovic. That would really annoy me if they sold Petrovic. Because as you've said here, any keeper, if we look to sign a new goalkeeper, if we look to sign a new one, I really like Chevalier. Said that 2 summers ago, and I said it last summer. And now all of a sudden everybody wants him. He's right up there for me. But Petrovic is who I would start Petrovic next season. I would. Would you start Reece James on Friday? I want to see him play Premier League games. You've got to have your captain on the pitch. I really don't know, because like I say, I'm gonna sort of make my my video for tomorrow. Reece is in a position right now for me where, as much as I love him, I know that he's somewhat limited to what he can give, at least for these last few games. I think after a pre-season, I think at some point you have to let him off the shackles. So there is that. But my choice would it all depends tactically for me. It's nothing to do with whether I think Reece should play or not because of his character, or because I want my captain on the pitch or I don't. Once I've watched a few more games tonight and I've made my decision on what I think we should do in terms of how we should set up to beat this Man United team on Friday, whether Reece is in that or not will be based on who I think is the best tactical fit. So I'll let you know. That will be out tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that and you'll see. Yeah, I don't think he's misprofiled Palmer at all. Gusto, people think he's misprofiled Gusto because of what he did last season. I personally think Gusto can play a really good part in that role. If in an ideal world, I can understand it, because I think as an overlapping fullback is probably where he would get his, like, in chaotic football. And Reece James, I think he's actually protected Reece the best way possible. So, yeah. Where are we in the comments? We're gonna go through a few. No, I don't rate Garnacho that highly. No, not that highly. Hang on, let me go to here. Like I said, again, profile-wise, with Garnacho. Yeah, you just said you don't want Garnacho. Love Osman, but he's asking for a rank. Yeah, oh yeah, you'd have to get it down. Who's going to be back up Casado? So it's Sugo. Big up Brooke from AJ. Last few comments, get them in now because I'm going to. Yeah, I know. I don't agree with this at all, Dax. Rich Money saying big up to Daniel Knight. Yeah, I don't agree with it at all. I think he definitely belongs in this half space where he can create. People don't like it, but when he drops into this spot, he's got the ability to play that long ball. He sort of draws 2 or 3 men in with him, and he can spin them on the turn, and he can do it in both sides of the pitch. I love him in this spot. I just think he's had just a few off moments, but if he wasn't as injury prone as he is, Hams, I've said this characteristically, he's very, very suited and he's very much like Fofana, but you can't have him and Fofana when they're both still very, 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 what do you call it? Similar and injury prone. Ekatike, we touched on it. So when this stream ends in like 5 minutes, if that, just go click back on it, and it's about midway through the video because there was like a 5-minute section on Ekatike. Consider Tell, I would, but if I considered it would be off the left. It would be in a similar way to Rogers. Do you remember when we had that Rogers chat? That's sort of a similar way to how I'd use Tell. The way I sort of can see Tell, and the way I have categorized him when watching him lately, is I think he's very much of the Marmouche, Rafinha, that type of. You start them off the left, you give them the license where they are going to attack in behind. They're going to be an outlet, but they're going to come inside and they're going to be a sharpshooter. That's what you want them to be. So yeah, would I consider him? Yes, because the price has gone down apparently as well. But yeah, if you get Gittens, is at the end of George. I think he can still make it. I would send him out on loan because I think he deserves. Where I stand with George, and I'm such a big fan of George. Like I said, I'd start him against Man U. And yeah, they are putting out a weaker team, Man U, Rich Money. But I think next season his minutes have to go up because he's had a good season. So that's where the issue is now for me. Like, how do you get George's minutes up if you're still signing a left winger? With Esteval joining as well, he's going to play on the right, and Neto Madueke. Yeah, so I would look to loan him out and get him a really good loan where he can play a good amount of minutes next season. Yeah, I don't think he has. I think he's actually protected him. I think he's actually made it that he actually has a career at Chelsea. Because I think if Maresca hadn't have been here to do what he's done, and he'd have done what Poch did, and he'd have done what every other manager's done with him since his injury issues, then we'd have seen Reece 4 or 5 games this season again. Just the odd few games. Keeps getting back down injured. Head down. Never get your captain. He's never around. He's always injured. And yeah, I think what Maresca's done is actually really, really clever with Reece. Like I say, next year you can't do it forever. Next year you do have to look to up it a little bit and use him a little bit more expansively. But even then, like, you continue to try and protect his workload if you don't think he can cover that entire ground. So yeah, he's not a needle mover, but tactically he can play in any centre back 100% Hams, 100%. Really agree with that. Rather keep George, getting Gittens. Again, I think once the Gittens video comes out, hopefully you'll maybe have a bit of a different thought towards Gittens. But I love Tyreek George, really do. Would you consider Neto as a left wing and get a left-footed right wing? No, I wouldn't get a left-footed right wing. No, I wouldn't. We've got Esteval coming in, who's a left-footed right winger. You've got Noni, who's a left-footed right winger, and you've got Neto, who is a left-footed right winger. Yes, both Noni and Neto can be that left-footed left winger if you want them to as well. But I think the only winger that you should be signing is what do you call it? Is a right-footed. Oh wait, I've got it. Yeah, a right-footed left winger. Rich Money saying exactly what needs to be said. Let's hit the likes and get it to 30 by the end. What are we on now? Can we have a quick refresh? 23. Can we get 7 more likes on the video before the end? Because we're going to end it in 2 minutes. So can we get those last few likes? I'm going to refresh it in 60 seconds. Please do smash a like if you're still here watching to get that like total up. Give captain to Enzo Fernandez or Casado. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's worth stripping it off of James now. But, I mean, I would have no issue with Enzo being the actual captain. And I think it's a really good dynamic when he is the captain on the pitch. With Gittens, you like him a lot, but we need a starting left winger over him for now. That's the issue. Like I say, that's what I'll touch on a bit in the video. I don't think he smashes it next season, which is why you'd need Madueke or Neto to actually be like a big part at left wing next season as well. Don't understand how people don't rate Maresca. Clearly, it's personnel he's missing. We sustained attacks for so long. Yeah, 100%. Do I expect a poor start to the season due to the Club World Cup? Yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, I do. I think it'll be harder. Whether that means that we actually do start the season poorly, I'm not sure. But do I expect it to be hard, much tougher? Yeah. Yeah, I do. We have Europe, so we need to keep a lot of players. Yeah, true. Enzo Fernandez played every single game. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I Enzo for me since he joined, I said I think he's a leader. I think him and Colwill are the biggest natural leaders in this team. Do you think Man City will beat Palace? Unfortunately, I do. But yeah, unfortunately, I do. It'd be nice to see Palace win though. Like, there's quite a few of their players I like, and it's just a bit of fun. Opinion on Retegui, brilliant, really, really good. Again, he's a good one to have in rotation with someone like Jack. If you was to go Jackson and Retegui, that would have been a great one to sign this season and have them compete in this season against each other. But yeah, I do really like him. I'm pretty sure I spoke about him in like January as well. Thoughts on Levi? Thought he's been really good, aggressive, and smart. He's always really smart. He has been more aggressive recently where he's had to be. And again, especially against Newcastle, I thought he's excellent. Really, really good. And against Liverpool, he's really good as well. So yeah. Enzo Fernandez is world champion. Yeah, you can see he's got that in him. Brentford could get Europe for the first time. Yeah, that would be crazy. That'd probably be them keeping hold of Burma and Visser as well, which is huge. Right, let me go for the refresh, and then we're gonna give this a end. 26 likes. Four more on the way out if you can, as you're on your way out, because I am about to leave it. Do you think Levi can play left centre back? He can, but he's best as central centre back. Thoughts on Benfica, the great guy. Oh, I know you're on about as well. Pavlidis, is that what you're on about? The striker, I know who you're talking about, but he's decent. But again, he'd be like a bit of a Giroud signing, a backup. Getting a lot of questions coming in here. But yeah, he has done a job in the Conference League. I do think Nkunku gets shift and Felix as well. How we do it, I'm not sure. Same as Sterling. If we keep Sancho, where would he play? Because he can start in the Prem. I think he'd still play off the left, and I think there's a lot of ways you can use Sancho. Yeah, we don't want to be in the Conference League again. Keep Sancho. I would keep Sancho if you're going to sign Gittens. I would keep Sancho. If you're going to sign someone like Rodgers, then I wouldn't keep Sancho. That's going to be my last question answered. Please drop a like on the way out. Subscribe if you haven't already to help out the channel. Tomorrow will be the Manchester United tactical preview, so keep an eye out for that. Leave any questions as well. Go over to my Twitter if you haven't already got it, and I'll put out a sort of tweet saying to ask any questions. If you've got any questions ahead of the Man U game, leave them on that, and I'll try and answer them in tomorrow's video as well. Do you think we'll beat Real Betis? Yes, I do. Up the Chelsea. Subscribe, like, and I'll see you guys in the next one.